In a small town, wrapped in a dense forest and shrouded in mist, there was an urban legend that echoed through the whispered conversations of its residents. The legend spoke of a cursed game titled 99 Nights in the Forest. Those who dared to play it claimed that the horrors within mirrored their darkest fears, drawing players into a world where reality and nightmares intertwined. One evening, a teenager named Lucas decided to challenge the dark tales. He gathered his friends, Sarah, a skeptic, Mike, always in search of thrill, and Emily, who believed in the supernatural. They huddled in Lucas's dimly lit basement, the cracked walls echoing their laughter and nervous chatter. With a flicker of excitement and trepidation, they booted up the game, its title glowing ominously on the screen. As the game loaded, the atmosphere thickened. The virtual forest appeared lush, but devoid of color, the trees towering ominously, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. They chose their characters, and the game initiated a haunting melody that sent chills down their spines. Each player was tasked to survive a night, but with every passing hour, the forest grew darker, the trees whispering secrets in a language too ancient to understand. The first night progressed with eerie ease. Lucas scoffed at the challenges, while Sarah rolled her eyes, dismissing the phantoms lurking behind the trees. Mike, on the other hand, relished every jump scare, laughing even as shadows loomed closer. Emily, however, felt something else, a sensation that the game was watching them, reflecting their own fears through the screen. As they transitioned into the second night, the game's tone shifted. Shadows deepened, and the quaint sounds of leaves rustling began to morph into chaotic screams. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, clutching her controller tighter. The others laughed it off until their characters began to glitch, their features twisting into grotesque mocks of reality. A feeling of foreboding settled in the room like the mist outside the basement windows. On the third night, something changed. They discovered a hidden passage, an area unexplored by others, leading deeper into the forest. Curiosity ignited, and they ventured forth, only to find an abandoned cabin. Inside, items lay strewn about, and a diary filled with frantic scrawls caught Emily's attention. She read aloud, "The whispers follow me. They know my name. I can't escape." As the diary's chilling words hung in the air, the room grew silent. The lights flickered, and suddenly, a loud bang echoed from above. The basement door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic surged. The game's screen pulsated, each heartbeat of the music mirroring their rising dread. "It's just a glitch," Lucas insisted, though his voice trembled. Determined to finish what they started, they pressed on, but every decision plunged them further into darkness. The entity within the game revealed itself, a figure with hollow eyes and crimson skin, emerging from the shadows, mirroring their fears. Lucas's past mistakes, Sarah's insecurities, Mike's reckless pursuits, and Emily's buried traumas all became their reality. As they frantically attempted to escape the game, the line between their lives and the pixels blurred. Each night they survived, it became harder to remember who they were outside of the game. Suddenly, the horrific realization dawned on them. They were not players anymore. They were part of the narrative, trapped in a loop that replayed their fears on an endless cycle. With one final push to escape, the friends cried out for help, their voices swallowed by the void of the virtual forest. Lucas lost his grip on the controller, falling into the obsidian depths with screams swallowed by the midnight shadows. Outside, the mist thickened, and the forest hungered for more. And so it goes, 99 nights, replaying the horrors they wanted to escape. In the town, a new urban legend surfaced, whispers of a basement where kids disappeared, only to haunt the forest that consumed them. The game continued to be played, drawing in unsuspecting souls, each bound to the past's darkness, lost in a never-ending nightmare. The narrative unwound in the small town like a dark thread weaving through a tapestry, leaving trails of vanished youth and fractured memories. The legend whispered among the shadows seemed its new breath. The basement, once cheerful with laughter and thrill, became a tomb of despair. But the game, insatiable like a hungry maw, craved more souls to devour. Outside, the seasons turned, but it was as if time stood still within the cursed walls. The basement door creaked ominously whenever the wind whispered sweet nothings. It was a sound that echoed as if the house itself mourned the laughter that once filled its veins. Fearing what lurked below, the townsfolk began to avoid Lucas's home. Whispers transformed into warnings, and each hesitant glance towards the house grew heavier with dread. Meanwhile, the game continued its midnight draws. Rumor spread of silhouettes seen moving near the forest's edge, figures that seemed to fade in and out of existence. Parents lost children to the woods, each disappearance marked by a restless night filled with tortured dreams. Despite the growing trepidation, a new group of teenagers, unaware of the town's haunting lore, gathered near the driveway of what used to be Lucas's haven. They were drawn by the thrill of facing the unknown, and so they flocked, curious and naive. "Dude, it can't be that scary," one of them laughed, tossing a Molotov cocktail of bravado and arrogance into the air. The others laughed, their bravado fed by youthful ignorance. One of them, a girl named Chloe, felt a strange tingle at the back of her neck, a sensation of being watched. "I don't know, guys. What if it's true?" "Come on, Chloe. It's just a game," her friend Max exclaimed, his enthusiasm flattening her instincts. They launched themselves into the basement. The air, thick with dust and shadows, trailed behind them like creeping tendrils. With the flick of a switch, the screen glowed ominously, and whispers layered over the hum of technology echoed their fears as the game booted. The first hours were innocent enough, laughter mingling with artificial threats as they partnered up in camaraderie. Chloe remained on edge, her heart pounding in rhythms that felt out of place rather than the excited flutters of adventure. She caught glimpses of shadows behind her friends, dark forms that flickered just outside her vision. Each time she turned, they vanished. A chill, far colder than any draft from the basement's cracked window, cascaded down her spine. It was on the third night when things shifted, just as it had for Lucas and his friends. The digital forest surged with a life of its own, turning playful pursuits into a twisted game of hunt and terror. Max, who'd been the loudest cheerleader, now stumbled back as their avatars stumbled upon the same cabin. The diary lay open before them, words etched in a frantic scrawl, eerily familiar to Chloe. "Help us! Save us! We can't escape!" it begged, the ink seeping like blood through the pages. Horror clawed at Chloe's sanity. She remembered Emily's panic during her turn. The room was suffocating. They had transformed from players into prey. The binding energy, like a spider's web, glued them to the spot as the whispers grew louder, forming a chorus that rattled the very core of their beings. The screen flickered ominously, displaying the faces of their friends who had vanished, trapped within the digital morass, eyes hollow and pleading. Chloe screamed, shaking as she grasped the controller, desperately trying to find a way out. But the shadows danced closer, coiling around them as Max's laughter grew frantic, turning to shrieks of panic. Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut behind them, an echoing finality that never truly belonged there. They were ensnared, the depths of the forest reaching into the room, clinical and merciless. "Break the connection!" Chloe cried, barely making herself heard over the cacophony. With shaky hands, she ripped the power cable from the console, plunging them into darkness. The whispers ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that engulfed them like a shroud. Then came the scratching, claws raking against the walls, desperate for their warmth. But But the silence was fleeting. The power surged back, lights flickering erratically as the screen illuminated once more. This time, it displayed their own terrified faces, shrinking back as figures morphed behind them, the entity's smile wide and cruel. It wore their fears like a mask. It was not just the game anymore, it was the forest itself, hunting them, calling for their essence. As the shadows lunged forward, pinning them against the walls, Chloe felt her thoughts dissolving. Memories of laughter, of friends, of light faded into the backdrop of terror unfolding before her. They were no longer just random kids. They were entwined with the forest, slivers of their lives merging with the echoes of torment. Howling layers of despair drowned out their cries as the game whispered, 99 nights, forevermore. Back in town, the whispers swelled into a frenzied warning, warnings of the disappeared merging into the legend, while the basement lay silent, waiting for the next unsuspecting players to enter its chilling embrace. In the shadows, the forest stirred, hungry for more, honoring its sacrifice with the promise of eternal fear.